to our live show. We haven't done one of these in quite some time, and we have a very cool truck at our studios. So Zach, who is behind the camera, and we wanted to kind of show you the brand new 2025 Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro. This is 10 years of TRD Pro, actually, because the first iterations of TRD Pro trucks and SUVs, including the 4Runner, came out approximately 10 years ago. So this is kind of cool. So what I wanted to do in this live show is get your feedback. So it's about you guys asking questions, providing feedback, comments, all that stuff. And Zach's got the chat room pulled up. So over the next, I don't know, half an hour, we can walk around this truck and you guys can ask whatever questions you have, feedback about pickup trucks in general. Thank you for joining us as always. Thank you for supporting TFL Studios. We really appreciate your watching us and also supporting us on Patreon, patreon.com/TFLcar. Zach, how are we doing? A few people joining us?
Yeah, give me one moment.
Okay, no problem. So this truck, I wanted to tell you guys some of the stuff I really love about it and also some of the stuff I dislike about it. This is a big deal because Tacoma is the best-selling midsize truck in the country, in the United States. And the TRD Pro is one of the most desirable because, well, it's got a lot of features, it's got a lot of capability baked into it. And for 2024, this is a new generation of the Tacoma. This one you see here is a 2025 model. This color is called Mud Bath. So Toyota has been doing this over the last 10 years. They've been highlighting new colors on their TRD Pro lineup, and then those colors would spread around some of the other entries and some of the other trim levels in their lineup. So let me know, first of all, what you think about this color. It's kind of I would call it Colorado dirt color. This kind of seems to match Colorado more than anything else.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing about it, Andre, is Toyota seems to alternate from year to year, right? Between really vibrant, bold signature colors for the TRD Pros, and then kind of muted, more earthen colors. So obviously we're in that part of the cycle.
Yeah.
So would you take this over something like Terra, or would you want to go for more of a solar octane voodoo blue? Because I'm more of that kind of guy. If I'm spending nearly $70,000 on a truck like this, I'd want to show it off a little bit.
Exactly, and we can talk about price too, because the price on this truck is very high. I am with you, Zach. I would love, well, I purchased the Voodoo Blue TRD Pro Tundra, a 2019 model. So if that tells you anything, then you kind of will know that. So this color is a little bit more muted. It's a little bit more camouflaged. But Zach, I think one of the most popular colors on the TRD Pro 4Runner, according to the forums, is actually army green, which is also kind of camouflaged color, which kind of blends into the environment. It doesn't pop out and stand out in a very great way. But let's talk about, unless we have some really burning questions or comments, I want to start out with my experience off-roading this truck, and it has to do with a lot of off-road gear.
Yeah, real quick before we get into that, just to go through a couple of the early comments. Roberta says, no V6 and overpriced, no thanks. Again, we'll get into the powertrain here in a second. We'll get into the pricing here in a second. Analog Kensha says, I much prefer brighter colors like the orange that the 4Runner had recently. So that's what I was saying about Solar Octane. That was a 2023 model year. 24 was Terra.
I believe last year was Terra.
Yeah. So I have a feeling if you want something like that, hold on for the 26 model year. Toyota might have something more vibrant in store.
We actually don't know any information about that yet, or the color.
No, they haven't announced that yet. We'll probably have to wait a few months for that kind of information.
Yeah, but this TRD Pro is just kind of like, you can only get it one way basically, right? There's not a lot of color choices right now for 2025, and they are all hybrids. So I guess we could start with the powertrain because I think that was one of the top comments or one of the comments so far. iForce Max is their hybrid truck powertrain, right?
Yeah.
So I can pop the hood and we can take a look. It's basically a 4-cylinder turbo engine with an electric motor and a lot of torque. Not a ton of horsepower, but a lot of torque. And I recently took this truck. We have a video coming out very, very soon on TRD Off-Road channel. We have a video coming out where Jen and I took this truck and a Ranger Raptor on the Ironclads Trail. So let's take a look at the powertrain just really briefly.
Actually, real quick before we get to that, Andre, and if you want to swivel around to me real quick, one thing that really helps with the TRD Pro in particular, totally get the folks who are like, I'm not digging not having at least a V6. This actually really helps it not sound quite so much like an appliance. So as far
TRD exhaust, basically.
Yeah, the rest of the lineup, I completely understand the concern, and not having a V6 can be a bit of a bummer, but that does help liven things up a little bit, is what I was getting at.
Exactly. And also the black roof. I kind of like this touch. So it's kind of a two-tone, and the roof kind of disappears if you look at this truck, kind of from far away. So I think that's a very cool look, and it's also a very aggressive look in general. I mean, this truck, it's got giant wheel openings, 33-inch tall tires. Could be a little bit larger, so a lot of people actually throw slightly larger diameter tires on these, but a very aggressive look.
Yep.
And also a fake hood scoop. I'm not sure why we need fake hood scoops, but this hood scoop, I mean,
but you just need big, aggressive, badass. Because the thing is, like, if you back out a little bit and you go wide, like this truck's already tall. Like the hood is up to mid torso.
Yeah.
So you need just that little bit more height to show people you've got a big, badass off-road truck.
But you can see this. There's this hood is completely closed, so that hood scoop is actually non-functioning. But we do have a TRD intake system here.
Yeah, this is where your air intake is actually at over here.
I think there are a couple of different paths where the air, of course, can enter this. This looks really cool, red color. The orange cables are high voltage cables. And total horsepower is 326, which is not a heck of a lot if you think about, where the Ranger Raptor is now, over 400 horsepower.
Yeah.
But if you look at every other pickup truck, including the Colorado ZR2 and many other entries in the space, including the new Nissan Frontier, 326 horsepower is quite a bit more than most others, but 465 pound-feet of torque, which is monstrous torque.
Yeah, and real quick, while we're on the subject, Justin was saying the old 4-liter V6, so not from the past generations coming, but the one before that, and on the previous 4Runner, felt like it had more torque than this engine. Now, this 2.4-liter turbo alone, I have a bit of a tendency to agree with that. The turbo is supposed to help with kind of low to mid-range power or torque, getting off the line. But that electric motor also helps a lot with that on launch. So it does feel like it has more low down grunt and actually like where you spend the majority of your time driving than the old V6. Because in order to really feel like you were getting a lot out of the 4-liter or even the old 3.5, you really had to pin it. You had to go pretty much to red line to feel like you were picking up any kind of speed.
Maximum torque on this powertrain is like 1,700 to 1,800 RPM.
Yeah.
So the maximum torque is there really early, down low. And actually, when I was off-roading this with Jen, it was really easy to kind of modulate the throttle in 4-wheel drive, low range, and just crawl over obstacles very slowly. So from that standpoint, I think this system has a lot of very usable torque. But if this doesn't seem like a lot of power to you guys, it could be because of the weight of this truck is also quite high.
It's a beefy boy.
Because it's also pretty heavy. So if you can take a look here, you may not see this completely, but it's got 1,200 pounds of payload, but it's got a little bit of additional equipment. So you have to subtract about 36 pounds for some of the additional equipment that the factory put on here. So overall, this is over 5,400 pounds of curb weight.
It's a lot for midsize.
But it does have a lot of protection. So we could take a peek underneath. and show you lots of skid plates. This has an optional rear differential skid plate, which kind of encompasses the entire thing. So let me see if I can actually light some of this up for you. So my favorite part of this truck is actually its off-road capability. I don't know, Ian, if you can actually kind of kneel down here with me, but you could see gigantic skid plate right there encompassing the rear differential. We've got the fuel tank skid plates and a skid plate in the front, of course, that we can show you later. This has 11.5 inches of ground clearance according to Toyota. This also has this rock slider. It's pretty strong. Let's see, it actually ties in to part of the cab here and also the frame. So very strong, very low profile. I love this because one of the things I dislike about the Ford Ranger is that that giant step protrudes a lot, and this is tucked in. So that's one of my favorite parts about this truck is it's just clearances are great, approach angle is great, departure angle is pretty good, ground clearance is good, and also this slow speed, and also the fast speed off-road capability is really great.
And that's what the TRD Pro is sort of designed for, at least in the current context of the new generation Tacoma. Because alongside this in the lineup, for equivalent sort of price, we have the Trail Hunter.
Exactly.
Which is more, with its kit and its specific feature set, including the raised air intake, is meant for more kind of low speed technical off-roading. This is meant to be more of a Baja Blast kind of truck to compete directly with the Ford Ranger Raptor and the Chevy Colorado ZR2 and the Canyon AT4X.
Yeah, exactly. And a big part of that fast speed technology is actually the seats.
Exactly.
And these seats, the Toyota calls it isodynamic seats. They actually have air shocks in the back, both for the driver and the passenger. And it's supposed to, according to Toyota, kind of steady the body of the driver and the passenger and kind of, prevent some of the head movement you can get off-road. And actually, this truck comes with this little air pump, so you can kind of adjust the air pressure in these shocks. Really fancy, huh, Zach?
Yeah.
So you basically undo one of these knobs. But this is not my favorite feature of this truck at all, Zach.
Yeah, so just to point out while you're unscrewing that, kind of a pain to do on camera because it takes a second, but you have two air gauges there. One is for the up and down support from the shocks. The other one's for side-to-side adjustment.
Yes.
So you can change the pressure in each axis individually.
So, well, there's many dislikes for me with this.
Yeah.
So you can adjust actually pressure. So you could pump it up, and then you can release some pressure using this little.
Yeah, if you hit that button, it's more finite control to let some of the air pressure out, so you're not just going either zero or all the way.
But it removes. So I question the comfort of the seat. I'll show you how I fit in the front, but it removes a lot of the rear space.
Yeah.
Because
before you see how you fit in the front, why don't we see how you fit in the back?
Yeah. Let me try this.
The seat's adjusted like that.
Obviously, I am one of the taller folks here. Ow.
I was gonna say you don't exactly look comfortable there. So here I'll adjust that up.
Move it up
bit.
just a little. So first of all, yeah, that's enough. So sometimes you can put your knees in here, but my knees really don't fit in there. I can move my knees wider, but once again, they're hitting either this B pillar or the seat. This is plastic, and my hair is touching. My head is kind of touching the ceiling a little bit. So rear seat room is really compromised in the TRD Pro.
In order to get it to the point where it's not compromised, you have to move the front seat up, obviously. And one thing I will give Toyota an enormous amount of credit for with this generation is they did fix the seat ergonomics here. Because in the last generation Tacoma, trying to get in the front seat and thread your leg between the steering wheel and the seat was a massive pain. That's a lot better. But let me demonstrate, especially with me, I'm 6 feet and not exactly the smallest person. You see, I can't even.
Well, you have to move it back.
And I'm a bit, I know, I'm a big boy. And but that's what
Just
I'm
a little,
saying.
yes.
In order to not compromise the rear seat space, rather, you have no front space. So you either can't accommodate a rear passenger or you can't accommodate a driver or a front passenger.
All right, well, let me try this again.
Yeah,
so if I get in here, I can actually scooch a little bit forward. And yes, so they increased actually the overall height of the cab for this new generation of the truck and raised the hip point, so basically the seat cushion a little bit higher. And it's better than ever, in my opinion. But like you were saying,
Yeah.
it's either front space or rear space and not both, generally speaking.
Also, when you do have these seats in the TRD Pro, you'll notice here you should have power support for the backrest. Normally you would, but that's blanked off. So you have a ratchet here in order to actually adjust your backrest.
Yeah, so the back of my seat, I can recline this way and look at the stars, I guess, with my sunroof, or manually bring it up. So that's not a huge deal, but these seats are supposed to be kind of like a hammock. It's supposed to like cradle your body as you're driving at fast speed off-road. And I've tried, Jen and I drove pretty quickly, about 30 miles an hour over really rough and rocky terrain. And this truck can do it. It has Fox shocks that we can show you next. But the Fox shocks are also manually adjustable. So there's a lot of manual adjustment in this truck. You can adjust your seats with air pressure. You can turn knobs outside to adjust the shocks. So this truck, you really have to be involved with it. You really have to be one with the vehicle. You can kind of see the front suspension here, the upper A-arm, and actually I love the way this is designed. It's special for TRD. You've got color under here, but then you have to kind of lean back, lay down like this, so you could reach. I don't know, Zach, I don't know, Ian, if you could get along with me here, but you could twist the adjustment knobs. There's 3 adjustments for how firm this suspension can be. There's knob up here on each corner, and there's knob in the back on each shock. So you kind of have to know which settings you like the most, and then also you actually have to get down to actually turn the knobs.
Yeah, you can't adjust that on the fly through adaptive damping in the cab, for instance.
Yeah, and that's also not my favorite part.
Yeah.
So I think in order to really improve this truck, I think I would make the ISO seats optional. Right now they're not.
And a few comments are going saying exactly that. 'Cause
Yeah.
Again, if you get the Trail Hunter, you don't get those seats.
Yeah, you don't get those
so
seats.
that could be a bit of a plus depending on exactly what you're going for.
But these shocks themselves are very capable.
Yeah.
So, and the capability of the shock has to do with taking some of those bigger bumps at speed and actually not sending all the shock through the driver and passengers' bodies, but actually cushioning that, and this truck can do it. Any other questions so far?
Yeah, I wanted to get to some of the earlier comments. One of them was the old live sessions were on a planned schedule. Any chance of planning and announcing the live videos going forward so we know when to tune in? Ideally, yes.
Yes.
Sorry about that. This is a kind of spur of the moment thing. And it's like, well, everybody's gone. The weather's not that great. We have the truck here, content's king. We could always stand to have more videos up on the channel. So, hey, let's do a live show with it. And it's just a really cool looking truck besides.
Yeah, exactly. And we only have it for a week. I mean, it's going away very soon.
Yeah, we had it for a week as
yeah.
of a few days ago. It's actually going away for a couple days. That's just how the normal cycle goes.
Exactly. And also, so Roman, Tommy, Case,
Cole, Jen.
A lot of our
Yeah.
team is actually traveling around the world, not just the country, today.
Yeah, Tommy's in South Korea right
Yeah.
now, which you were there just a few weeks ago. I mean,
know.
we are literally going all over the world.
It's really amazing,
Yeah,
but we
it's a
still
great
wanted to
opportunity.
share this with you
Yeah.
and allow you guys, to participate and ask and provide your feedback. So.
Another quick comment I wanted to get to earlier on. Sorry, give me 1 sec, see if I can find it again. I apologize. I lost exactly who asked it, but one
It's
sec.
okay. Just keep looking.
No. I remember the comment.
Okay.
I was just trying to find out who asked it. It was a question about when are we going to review the 2026 Honda Passport Trail Sport. Case and I were
Tomorrow.
actually on that in Puerto Rico of all places. I don't know if I can technically say that, but it was really cool. I can't say anything about the car until tomorrow. So we will have a video going up on TFL Off-Road tomorrow morning. It's about 7 a.m. Mountain Time, so just stay tuned for that. It is coming in less than 24 hours.
Exactly. So I cannot wait. I've never been to Puerto Rico. You guys
It was amazing.
reviewed the new Honda Passport Trail Sport there. It's going to be cool. And then later in the week, we'll have this truck off-roading in the mountains of Colorado against the Ranger Raptor.
Yep.
So we'll have that for you as well. I also wanted to show you the bed, which is another favorite item on this truck for me. Let me see where my light is. Yes, it's here. So first of all, this is now composite beds. I mean, Tacomas have had composite beds for quite some time. You could push this button to open the tailgate. You can use a key. You can use a button inside. Many different ways of opening and closing this tailgate. It's powered.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a fancy feature, and that's one of the other reasons, by the way, we have light here, why this truck is $67,000. So we have to mention that now, right? And actually, there's not a lot of options, like I said. So the truck comes basically, you can pick an interior color or exterior colors. You can make the seats red. If you do that, you cannot choose this mud bev color. So I'm not in love with how Toyota is doing options, right? They're kind of cutting some of the choices, and not sure why, and I'm not a huge fan of that. Let me put this here. I wanted to show you some of the electric options here in the bed. So if you kind of see this, there's a little cubby hole here in the bed. It's got a 12 volt right here, and also USB-C plugs. So this is really cool. Like, I'm imagining, having a rack on this truck, or maybe a camper, like a Go Fast campers, for example.
Yeah.
So this is weather protected, or maybe you have a tonneau cover on this truck. And also, so you can charge some of your devices. Maybe you have a satellite antenna, Starlink on this truck. Maybe you have some other accessories, a little fridge. So that's very useful. And then on this side, Ian, if you look around this way, you have 2.4 kilowatt plug. So this is actually a lot of power. So you can use actually some power tools. You could, build your log cabin in the woods using some of this power. You also have, of course, this little cubby here as well. So I like the bed. And also, composite beds can be kind of slick, but this has a bed liner on it. And this bed liner is kind of grippy, a little bit more grippy than otherwise. So lots of tie-down options. So I think they did a really great job with this bed.
I will ask you too, with that outlet, 2.4 kilowatts that's about the top of what you can get for a mid-sized truck, right?
Exactly.
Because in the half-ton segment, obviously Ford has its Pro Power onboard
with the F-150.
system. Yeah,
with the
up to
F-150
7.2 kilowatts.
Exactly. So this
And
is
240 volts, that's only 120.
So this is not a 7.2 kilowatt system. It would be nice if it had it.
I could imagine for packaging reasons that might be difficult to have that kind of inverter on this size truck.
But also 2.4, I mean, you can run like, I don't know, a blender. You can make some, you can run a little stove.
Yeah.
You could do a lot of different things using this type of power. So that's pretty nice.
So folks are still going back. I mean, it's been a consistent theme throughout the entire
Price?
live show, right? Yeah, going back and forth about price.
Price.
$65,000 for a fake hood scoop, and they couldn't even include gas struts for the hood. Interesting point. We didn't get to that. It does have a manual prop bar two-position. Feasibly would make it better for serviceability, but how much do you really want to be under the hood with all that high voltage wiring? So it would be nice to actually have some gas struts for that kind of money. Sorry, Toyota, but this is a freaking joke, according to Ordinary Armenian. $10,000 overpriced, if not more, and then $67K now, $70K, sits in the ballpark of a well-optioned full-size truck. Actually, I'd argue it's more kind of a mid-range full-size truck these days, because that's the thing. As these trucks get more expensive,
so do
the upper, each class above it also moves up. So now we're in the world where, I mean, take the F-150 Raptor R. It is kind of an extreme example, I'll grant you that. But that's $120,000.
113.
And feasibly, I mean, obviously not everybody's going to run out and grab one of those or finance one of those. But even, your Laramies, your Limiteds, your Tundra Platinums, because there's the Capstone now is the top end. your Chevy Silverado LTZs, your F-150 King Ranch. Those are sitting in the $80,000, $90,000 ballpark too. So those trucks aren't cheap either.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, Toyota wouldn't price this truck at $66,000 if they thought they couldn't sell any of them, right? So, I mean, there's a little bit give and take here, right? I mean, Toyota is not, I mean, they're the biggest manufacturer in the world right now.
Yeah. And speaking of give and take, I am going to address the elephant in the room because the T word has been coming up in the chat. Understandably, as of this week, the situation could change. Now, we're really diligent about not getting overtly political where we can help it. Obviously, that's not really our shtick. That's not what we aim to do. You know, we're here to entertain you guys. We're here to educate you guys as best we can and not take a political stance, at least as an organization at the end of the day. We're people, we have opinions on what's going on with this just like everyone else. The fact of the matter is, whatever you may think or say about the policy and the decisions behind the policies, those are going to come into effect this week. They have a tendency to impact pricing. We don't know how much. Every automaker is going to have a different strategy for how they do it too. So it could be the case that when those go into effect, this truck suddenly gets a lot more expensive. I mean, the kind of worst case scenario.
All of them are built in Mexico.
Correct. Yeah, that's another case in point too. Is
all of them.
The last gen Tacoma used to be built in Texas.
Yeah.
And they shifted production to Mexico, Baja California specifically, and now Tundra and Sequoia full-size SUV production is in Texas. So will we see automakers shift production around, build new plants, ramp up production back in the United States? We could, but it could take time. So yeah, that bottom line price.
It's $67,410. And also it includes a couple of options. So the towing package, it does have a brake controller in this one. And it also has trailer wireless camera setup. That's why we have 3 shark fins on the roof. So that's about $850. It's got, let's see, a rear differential cover, that's about $355. And also mud bath grill lettering, which says Toyota, it's $285. Okay, so I don't know if I would get the letters, but I think I would definitely get the towing pack on this truck. I think that's a must if you want to do a lot of different things with it. And also the rear differential skid, I think I would get that too, because it's kind of the lowest point right there. So yeah. I think, but yeah, you're right, Zach. So taxes, tariffs will affect this truck, and we don't know how.
Right, yeah, we can't stipulate, and I definitely don't want to sit here and speculate that worst case scenario to say, at the end of this week, that $67,000 truck's suddenly going to cost $80,000.
We can't say that
and
because we don't know.
No, we don't know with certainty.
Yeah.
We don't know exactly how Toyota's going to handle it. I think to some extent, they, like every other automaker, they're still trying to figure out exactly how they're going to do that with relatively short notice. And it's a matter of trying to balance, obviously what you're going to have to do, the importers are going to have to pay this money. So how or if that cost is passed on to the consumer is still very much up in the air.
It's
Freyland Alfredo is asking, does that mean Tacoma can rise in price above the USA-built Tundra? So the thing about the Tundra and a lot of other vehicles built in the US besides is, the vehicle may undergo its final assembly in San Antonio, but that doesn't mean that every single component, which is also going to be subject to the tariffs, aren't foreign source, right?
Yeah.
Because the 3.4 liter twin turbo V6 is sourced in, where is that one built? Do we know?
I don't remember, but I think that's the United States. But
so that's
you're absolutely right.
That's
I mean, the seats might be coming from somewhere else.
Right.
The other components, electrical components, you got seat belts.
You could have that, that infotainment screen, things like that.
Yes.
And I don't know the exact breakdown of U.S. versus non-U.S. part
and
components
also,
sources on this.
Manufacturers usually give you some idea, like where the powertrain comes from and where the vehicle is assembled.
Yeah.
But they don't tell you everything, right? I mean, they don't tell you item by item where everything comes from. Sometimes they give percentages, but there's still about 20% of unknown,
Right.
right, in most vehicles that we looked at. So it's really unclear, but it is built on the TNGA-F frame platform, which underpins the 4Runner, the Land Cruiser. By the way, the 4Runner and Land Cruiser are coming from Japan. They're assembled in Japan. The
I mean, we could be here all day if we wanted to,
yes,
talk about what vehicles would be impacted by this versus not. I mean, it is virtually everything.
because it's really
from the big
interwoven,
three.
right? The whole world
We
is
are,
really
we
interwoven.
live in a globalized society. Again, whether or not you would prefer it to be that way, it's not really the conversation. It's just the fact of the matter is that is the case. And when it comes to these supply chains, like when something like this goes into effect, automakers aren't going to, pivot overnight.
Right.
Like in some cases, suppliers are on site to the assembly plants. So for certain components, they're right there, especially for those components that they have to have, right there at point of final assembly.
Well, rigid lights, right? I mean, that's a supplier.
Yeah.
Rear bumpers are ERB, right? So ERB is basically, an Australian company, but they manufacture in many different countries as well. So, I mean, a lot of different components come from everywhere.
Yeah. Justin said, I guess I'll have to resort to 3D printing my own Tacoma.
Okay.
I don't
All
know
you need is a
exactly where
frame.
again, it's a matter of, the 3D printers and where they're built and where you get your filament and things like that. But
Yeah. So this
you
is
can have a little like 1/18th model, 3D printed of a Tacoma. That would be a lot cheaper than buying the truck, even at its current rate.
yeah. There's going to be an interesting world over the next few weeks.
Yeah. So
by the way,
yeah, go
a
ahead.
lot of the Tacomas are already in the States. I mean, they've been shipping them for the last several months.
Right. So it's a matter of supply that automakers have in their inventories to sort of stem the flow of this. Because if you just did 25% just like that, that would be a massive shock. And of course, the automakers know that.
And it's still a massive shock.
Right. So we'll see, exactly how each one plans to soften the blow, whether they stockpiled vehicles ahead of time, whether they're just going to eat the cost. Not particularly likely. I think it'd be kind of a graduated rollout. Yeah, margins are
below 25%.
And I mean, the fact of the matter is, the reason why these vehicles are so expensive anymore, at least in part, is just because these components are more expensive than ever. Like the cost of manufacturing also goes up. So it's not just we're charging $70,000 because we can. It definitely feels that way sometimes, but just the cost to build this truck versus 15 years ago or however long you want to go back is just more than it used to be.
But there's something else too. Maybe we could look at the profile really quick as we finish up this live show. I've talked to many different manufacturers, and there has been a trend for accessorizing your truck in the aftermarket, right? Overland Expos, you've all heard about this, and you've all been to some of these shows. And so I think what manufacturers were seeing, people would buy a stock Tacoma, right, for example, or a stock, whatever, name your pickup truck or SUV, anything, and then they would put customized bumpers like this, tow hooks, maybe an exhaust system. And so Toyota and other manufacturers noticed a lot of these updates that owners were doing. And they said, well, why are somebody else doing it? Why don't we sell all those parts all at once, right? So that's kind of where this is all coming from.
They get action as a result of that. They can
Yeah.
get a little bit of extra margin out of
Exactly.
getting this out of the customer at point of sale rather than they get the truck and then the aftermarket gets those bumpers or whatever other parts you want to put on it.
Exactly.
Like the Fox shocks too.
Exactly.
That sort of thing. Yeah.
So that's kind of where some of the price creep has been coming from.
Yeah.
And also, for example, Toyota and other manufacturers have programs where you could put, actually you can buy a rack at the dealer and roll it into the same financial plan.
Yeah.
Right, so if you wanted to put the rack system on this, or maybe a tent or something else, you could also buy it at the same time and finance it at the same time. But that also increases the price.
Yeah, a couple things I'd like to say about that. First off is you're correct that this sort of price creep from these parts suddenly becoming, well, not suddenly, but over time becoming factory rather than aftermarket. Explains it, certainly doesn't excuse it. It would be nice if, you could option some of this stuff in rather
Separately,
than,
right,
rather
separately.
than just having it as a kind of one size fits all package.
Yes.
And another thing too is it's really going to be dependent on your financial situation, of course, but your ability to do that it's cool that you can do that, but please don't go too crazy with that. I mean, it's already expensive as it is, especially with the way it looks like things are going. Just make sure you read the fine print, make sure you can handle the interest rates and the payments, and don't get yourself massively underwater.
Exactly.
If you can help it. I know it's tougher these days than it used to be.
So what
but
I
avoid
used to
that.
do, and now what I still do, is like, when I bought the Tundra, right?
Yeah.
It's taking me a few months to upgrade my tires. I want a larger tire. So I didn't do it at the point of sale, right? I waited a few months, and now I can, update my tires, get them bigger. Then, I might do a tent on my truck, and that comes later. So that's how I've been doing it, right? And maybe looking at the used market as well, to see what else I can come up with. So there's many ways of doing this.
It's going to be interesting to see in the next few years exactly what happens to resale values, not just with these brand new trucks, because obviously these will kind of filter into the used market over time as people trade or people sell, whatever happens there, but also the pricing on last gen Tacomas, because the argument could be if you don't want to pay $70,000 for a truck to have all of this from the factory, you can get the TRD off-road, which functionally speaking, apart from not having the ARB bumpers, not having the Fox shocks, as far as the tech features that you get, pretty close to the TRD Pro. You still get multi-terrain select, you still get crawl control,
Rear locker.
Still get a rear locker, don't get a front locker, unfortunately, but as far as off-road kit goes, TRD off-road, I would say, gets you 90% of the way there for at least a few $1,000s less. It is.
Well, I think right now it's about $46,000 for a TRD off-road in 2025.
If you don't get it with the iForce Max powertrain, if you just get it with the 2.4 turbo on its own.
Exactly. So, like mid 40s, low 40s to mid 40s.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you could add on top of it, premium packages and other packages. So that's kind of where the Tacoma market is right now.
And the mid-size truck market at large, I mean, apart from just that, because the thing is with this truck's pricing, it is more expensive, at least by MSRP, than the Ford Ranger Raptor. And again, we'll see how things change going forward. But just buying these trucks anymore is just, you're spending at least $60,000, assuming you can get these trucks at MSRP. Mm-hmm. And that's been an issue for getting on, 5 years plus now.
And also Ford Ranger Raptors are sometimes over MSRP with, dealer markups. So that's also an issue. By the way, you do have this bar light also. And that's not an option either. I mean, it just comes, TRD Pro comes with this. And those are these letters, body color letters. And I like adding some color to the truck. So overall, here's my take on this truck. I love the powertrain is pretty good, but in the real world, it's not super efficient. Don't expect this to be a Prius. I think you said, Zach, we've been averaging about 20 mpg-ish, 21-ish. Yeah. And it's rated at 23 on the EPA sticker. So we're still not seeing EPA numbers necessarily on this truck.
I will say, I think one of the reasons for that comes from just having a more potent powertrain from the start.
And you're stepping on it.
Yeah, you could probably eke a couple more miles out of it if you really granny drove it, but why would you?
Exactly. It looks this aggressive, right?
And it is quick.
Yeah.
Like, hopefully we'll get a chance to test that a little bit more thoroughly as time goes on too, but that's one thing I never thought I'd say about a Taco is this is actually reasonably quick with that 465 pound-feet of torque, 326 horsepower on tap.
And it's got really great capability, even though it doesn't have a front locking differential. You'll see that video later in TRD Off-Road. It has a lot of capability. Traction control is really good. Different driving modes, including rock crawl mode and others. Really good. Also clearances I love. I don't love the seats. So on the negative side, the seats, of course, I think the price of this truck we discussed already
Yeah.
is quite high. So that's kind of where this truck is for me.
Cool. Well, I don't think I haven't been seeing any more questions or comments at the moment, apart from everything we've already discussed.
Okay. Well, once again, we appreciate you joining this kind of impromptu live show. Let us know, obviously, what other vehicles you want to see. We have a lot of heavy-duty pickup truck content also coming up. We've done a heavy-duty gauntlet between all three diesels, all three heavy duties. And also, we've done some off-road reviews with those. We've done also MPG test while towing. And that's coming up within about a week or so, maybe a week and a half. So stay tuned for a lot of those videos coming up. Let us know what other stories you would like to see. And we'll see you next time.